Hello and good morning or good evening. I've just put this little bumper card to kind of introduce this cookery video. I decided I'd make it because I like making videos I want to make, and this was a completely spontaneous let's start recording as I make my dinner kind of thing. So the cinematography of it is pretty appalling. I forget which way I'm going to be holding my phone half the time, so sometimes it's landscape, sometimes it's portrait, and there is not really any recipe telling during this. It's more just, some sort of smash cuts of me putting a meal together. One thing I will say is the first thing I say in this video is that a roux is half fat to flour. That is not correct. That is what a pie crust is. A roux is 1-to-1 fat to flour in volume. So ignore that. The only other bit of recipe I give you is correct because it's literally off the back of a box. So, you're pretty much good to go. But I'm making stew in the video, and really nothing uses fixed measurements. It's kind of just wing it and it'll taste nice. I really encourage you to have a go if you are interested in what I'm going to describe as British soul food. If cookery is not for you, I'd give this video a miss. It's not going to go anywhere else. So I'll see you in the rest of the video. I've already covered this with people. This is a roux. This is roughly half fat to flour, done with butter. You see when I agitate it, it looks a bit like wet sand, which is like the perfect consistency. So this is ready to add liquid to. What I'm actually doing here is I'm making a brown roux, because it'll have a deeper flavour, and I'm making stew with it. So this is plenty to where you'd use it for a bechamel, or for a sort of like a blonde velouté, which is where you add chicken stock or something. But I'm going to be adding beef stock, and I'm going dark on purpose because it will go with the stew well. Just thought I'd sort of mention, because I think a lot of people talk to me and say they don't know how to make like bechamel, which is like the classic sauce. So I will time skip this down to where it's dark enough for me to add liquid, and then I will show you how you turn a roux into a sauce. And it's the same for bechamel as a velouté. So yeah, there'll be a jump cut now. So jump cut one, and this is a lot noisier in here. This is heading towards being a brown roux. You can see it's darkened in colour a lot. We've got a long way to go. The thing about doing a brown roux is you basically cook it till you think you're going to burn it, and then you keep going. So, a lot of input on a brown roux. If you're ever thinking of doing one, do a test one first, because I've actually never fucked one up, but I could imagine someone on their first time could absolutely burn the shit out of it. So this is like halfway to where you're going. You are going for like almost the colour of chocolate, whereas this is currently, I don't know, caramel coloured, I guess. All the noise, by the way, because I'm browning off beef in that pan. We will circle around that later, because I'm going to try and edit this into a fairly coherent video. I'm not going to bother voicing over it, but you can have some nice jump cuts and stuff. Speaking of, here's one coming now. And here we are. We've darkened it a lot. You can sort of see the lighting's not the best. This is basically chocolate brown now. You can actually go darker with this, and you would if you were doing stuff like sort of Cajun Creole food. They like a really dark roux for things like gumbo. But this is basically dark enough for what we're using for, which is going to be to making like a gravy, basically. And a gravy in the British sense, not the American sense, because Americans will call anything a gravy, apparently. So what we've got here is 1 jug of stock, and what we're going to do is we're going to add a bit, and you can stir with a spoon. I find it easy to whisk to some degree, but it'll basically sort of clump up really hard really fast, and you just keep incorporating. It would be better if the stock was hot, but I don't have time for that. But you can sort of see as I keep doing this, this will kind of keep re-thickening into like a sludge. That's what you want, because that's how you get it smooth. Basically, the flour's lumpiness will keep breaking down. You can sort of see, like, the paste it's making is very smooth. This might take nearly all the liquid I've got, but you don't do it all at once. You just kind of work it in a few times. So as I say, this is it's difficult. Traditionally, a velouté is actually sort of a light coloured sauce, but like I'm pretty sure it's still a velouté with dark sauce. The classic sort of dark meat sauce is an espagnole, which is made completely differently, so it's definitely not that. So I would say it's basically this is a velouté. You can sort of see this is like, anyone from Britain will recognise this as this is just gravy at this point. This is how gravy is made when you don't use granules. So we'll get all that in there. This will, I think this last bit of liquid will actually keep it a bit thin. So if you were using this as a sauce, like a bechamel, you would have stopped about where I was there maybe. Because this is now a little bit watery, but it's good for what I'm doing because I'm making stew and it needs that liquidity. So stop like one amount before I did. If you were making, like a bechamel. To make a bechamel, by the way, you would do exactly the same, but with milk, not beef stock. But you can sort of see the dark brown roux combines with the dark brown beef liquid, and that's how you get to this. This will continue to thicken itself. Let me just... Sorry, we've got to do this to get the spoon clean because I can't see. There's a clean enough spoon. I use this for flouring. You can sort of see it's still thick enough to kind of stick to the spoon, so it's got some texture to it, but as I say, because of what I'm making, it's kind of waterier than normal, and that's because the stew will thicken as it cooks anyway, and this will kind of really come up. I'm going to also be adding about this much beer, maybe not all of it, but a whole load of it. This is ale, technically, but I don't discern, if I'm being honest. But that gets you a nice sort of steak and ale, classic British flavour. Yeah, so we're going to jump cut again, and I'll have some other stuff ready to show you for stew, I guess. Quick jump cut over to my pressure cooker. Here it is. We've just put all the beef into a colander briefly, which we're now going to put back in the pan. The reason we went for that was, especially supermarket beef, they add a lot of water to it, they inject it. You can see at the edge there's some froth, that's the water coming back out. What I basically did was start frying this and then drain all this off, because you cannot fry with that much water. But at the same time, that water's good, it's full of beef, so you want that. But this is going to get properly browned off now. We've got it to that lovely grey colour that nobody wants. Yeah, I'll sear this to get some brown bits. You want that Maillard reaction. While we're on it, this can go in the tart. So there's no real magic to this at this point. We are just dumping everything into the bottom of the pot. Stew's great like that. You just throw it all in. I need to scrape this out, but I can't do it while holding phone. So I'll see you in like 10 seconds. Okay, we're going to season this up a bit. So this is Marmite. This is a dessert spoon. So this is more than a teaspoon, less than a tablespoon. Which will come off once it gets warmer, but it's sticking like hell at the moment. We have just shy of a tablespoon of salt. It's a lot of salt, but this is going to have potatoes in it, and potatoes will steal a lot of that salt because they are a, what do you call it, like porous vegetable. And then we have, this is a little over a teaspoon of black pepper. I've just ground it myself. Lovely workout. But it is what it is. That'll all just incorporate in. I'm also going to come back with, I don't know, a teaspoon and a half of tomato paste. I'm just layering up a whole load of sort of nice flavours that aren't strong flavours. And I'm aware, by the way, Marmite in itself is a strong flavour, but Marmite dilutes down really fast. So, we're going to have like a litre or so of liquid for that, not quite a tablespoon. Half a tablespoon probably this would count as of Marmite. You can see it's dissolving off the spoon slowly. The trick here is that's just going to be left propped up on the heat of the sauce. If I can get it to prop somewhere. There we go. So I'll just leave that there and it'll clean itself. So yeah, there'll be a little bit of tomato going in this. Hang on. Oh, I did grab it. I thought I'd forgotten. So I would say stew is one of those things where you can eyeball a lot of the stuff. So, you know, like I know what a teaspoon looks like thereabouts. So we're just past a teaspoon. That's about a teaspoon and a half thereabouts. And this will vanish, basically. Like, you know, it's still in there at the moment, but I'll give this a good whisk before I start dropping everything on top of it. But, you know, pretty much gone. And then we're just going to layer up some vegetables, some beef. Yeah. See you after the next jump cut. Okay, so we've got onto the carrots. These are Chantenay carrots. I personally prefer them a little sweeter, and I have, what do you call it, sort of like an artistic flavour palette, which is, I don't do that well with sort of bitter root vegetables, so I find these way better. Anyone who doesn't like carrots, have a go with those, because like they are nicer, especially when you get some sear on them. They sort of caramelise up a bit. They taste a lot less like poison. What I've done here is I've sifted these ones out because these are kind of little nubbins and they're not great. They're fine. And these two are a bit long. I have the advantage that I have a dog, so these are not getting wasted. I just want to keep these sort of more uniform size. You know, the big ones are absolutely fine. I would say these are, you can do something with them for sure. Like you can certainly cook and eat them, but they are the ugly carrots. They should be discarded or something. No, I have enough carrot here basically, so I'm not going to bother using the little ones. And as I say, the dog will love them. So we'll now jump cut to them all chopped up. And ta-da, they are now chopped up. So this is actually the whole length of one of the smaller ones with the top chopped off. The others I've kind of quartered, so they're all cut down long ways as you can tell. And then I've halved these ones because these are quite big for Chantenay carrots. These are massive, honestly. You know, they're normally kind of snug. They're normally about, that big with a top on. This is the sort of size of piece you're going for. And when I do the potatoes, they're going to be very similar in size, you'll see. But we're going to take these over to a pan and get a sear on the carrots. You don't see potatoes. I think Chantenay carrots really benefit from that caramelisation. It goes into your gravy, it improves the gravy, it improves the carrot. So we're going to take these over to the pan. This is the same pan that had all the beef in it. And in we go. Nothing special nor delicate particularly. We're just going to get a good sear and some good colour on them all. I am going to try and get them all the same way up while I'm stood here, just because then I know when I flip them all that I've flipped them all. So they're all going to get face down first and then face up. I will not record this whole process, so I'll see you in a minute. So you can see these have kind of changed colour a bit. They go a bit more, orange rather than carrot orange. That's orange the fruit, not orange the colour, and then the colour, not the fruit. Anyway, they've got a little bit of sort of sear and char to them, which is nice. It's flavour. It'll dissolve off a lot into the stew. These are being cooked in what I cooked the beef in. Quick side note: there's the beef sat on top of the gravy. It's all going to get piled in here and then stirred near the end. You can see it's got some nice brown bits to it. You don't want to go too hard on browning up that, because obviously it's going to slow cook, so you don't want to cook it through really hard first. It doesn't matter that it cooks through, like the slow cooking will deal with it. I'm pressure cooking because it's faster. I fully recommend it. But if you don't have one, slow cooker works absolutely fine. It just takes hours more. So if I give them a little flip, you can see these are now done. So we are literally just hoiking them into there to get a nice clear pan. We can drop the heat down loads. So we've got this, it's starting to get a little bit black, but it's fine. That's a whole load of flavour. This is also a good way to flatten the ale because it's very bubbly. But this will just deglaze nicely. I put half the bottle in there, and you can agitate your bottom. As I say, despite it looking burnt, you want to be careful. You want to do a little check maybe if you're not confident. that it's not burnt, but you can see this hasn't turned black. It wasn't burnt, it was very dark brown. There is a difference. You will know the difference because if it's burnt, it will taste like shit. So as I say, if you're not confident, I mean, I guess skip this if you want, but you know, I would really have a go. You could deglaze it with just a little bit of water rather than risking your ale. That would be fine. But when I tip this in now, you'll see. Just cut the heat. This will go in, and it will leave a relatively clean pan. Okay, pretty good. And that's what you want. So you know. Slightly less washing up and slightly more flavour in your stew. Potatoes. So these are Maris Pipers. These are a really common British potato. I don't know what you would use if you are not in Britain and don't have access to these, but basically these are a all-rounder that are, I would say, fluffier rather than starchier. They make really good stew potatoes basically, and I'm going to do a quick product placement and shout out. This is an OXO Good Grips vegetable peeler. They're really good. That's the entire advert. I will never ever not own this type of veg peeler. It is just a really good peeler, and I can't describe it apart from if you've ever peeled vegetables and gone, yeah, I hate doing this. This is so much nicer. It just peels really well. I unfortunately can't demonstrate because I don't have free hands, but if you trust me, it just does a really good job. So, you know, there's my product placement. OXO sadly does not pay me. Wish they did. Please pay me, OXO, or just send me shit. You know, that'd be great. I have like a whole 100 followers. Totally worth sending me free things. Cough, cough. So you can see I've cubed one of the potatoes up. I've peeled 3 of these. I picked the largest ones out of the bag basically. There's some sort of smaller ones here. You can sort of see you know, these are just a bit bigger. They're not much different, but you know, go for your biggest ones. It's more volume to surface area, which means less peeling. Yeah, these are, I don't know what they are. They're a little less than an inch cubed, probably. I'd say that's about an inch across, and that's not. It's a good size for stew because you don't want them to fall to bits, but you also want them to cook through, so that's the ideal size in my opinion. These two will be joining this in a big pile, and I'm going to throw it all in the pot, and we're going to cut over to that. So we're back at the pressure cooker. We've now got carrot, beef and potato in there. I'm going to stir it in. We've got a pretty good liquid level here. You can sort of see the gravy is thicker than it was before just because it's cooled off a bit, and that's what I mean about gravy, it just goes thicker. In terms of flavouring this up, just so you know, like if you have any herbs you like, you know, sort of, you know, a bit of rosemary, anything that you would say is a British herb, you know, don't start filling this full of basil, will go well in here. If you want it. I don't think it needs it. I like the kind of classic, strong, ale-y taste. Quick note that I'm using my larger slow cooker, which you can see. I have 2. This is the smaller one. If I put the sort of pots together, you can kind of see this is nearly twice the size. This comes out for stew and very little else. This is primarily for rice, I would say. They make really good rice cookers. Which I always like because it multitasks. But I just thought I'd sort of mention, like with the 2 sizes, they don't think they're right the literage on these, which is really unhelpful. But this is like a big one, basically. So what you'll see is like the liquid level in this is not perfect. So when I sort of said I threw about half of that in, what we now do is we just tip in an amount until we think it's got enough liquid. And that is probably about there. Grab anything I can to just give it. Don't need to mix it very much because the cooking process will just mix the sauce in on this now. But you can see that's like a bit looser now. That's kind of where we want it. That's kind of perfect. So that's what I've got left from the bottle. You want to eyeball it. You don't want to go, oh yeah, you need exactly that much in, because you know, depends entirely how much of everything else you've put in. You know. If you're cooking this, you feel free to drink that. I won't be because I don't drink alcohol. I'll cook with it, but I don't like the taste of alcohol, so I don't drink it. With regards to the vegetables, I've gone carrot and potato because I like those. Things like parsnip going really well. If you can think of anything else you want, do that. Do not mistake this massive pile of chilies on my side for something I'm throwing in. I don't think that's a good idea. I'd recommend against it. But, you know, just thought I'd mention that in case anyone kept spying those as I moved around. Yeah, this is basically done now. So, the nice thing about pressure cooking, and the reason I would recommend it to people is, you get it set to closed, you get the lid locked in place, you get the power on, you work out where the loose thing is, because this thing always comes out at the back there. And here we go. We got a stew. We bang it up to about 35 minutes for this one. You'll need to check with a slow cooker, like you just get used to yours, right? So many different ones. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to leave it as 35 minutes of cooking, and then these very gently leak pressure. So I'm not going to come back for probably an hour. And this will have just sat simmering quietly due to the pressure and released it. So when the pressure gets up, the lid won't come off. So, you know, I can obviously do it now. But once the pressure's up, this will lock as like a, due to the pressure, as like a safety feature, so you don't just, you know, release it all in your face. The pressure will drop off on its own. So if I can take the lid off later, I know that it's had enough sort of simmer time. So that's basically where we're going to jump to next. So I'm going to go do something for an hour, and I will be back to do the next jump cut then. And here's our final product. So this is lovely dark brown. It's a little bit oily on top. You can either skim that, or you can let it go cool, and if you fridge it, it'll go a bit more solid sometimes, and you can just sort of like lift the bits off or whatever. Or you can just eat it, depending on how you feel, because it's not terribly greasy, and it will, you know, it will stir in perfectly happily. At this point, it's obviously still hot. It's still able to kind of marry flavours. So this is where I'm going to take a clean spoon, just take a little bit of gravy away and give it a taste. That's basically perfect. If I thought it needed a bit more salt, this is the point where you just throw a little bit in. It's not going to need much. You know, when I say not much, one thing people don't realise is a pinch of salt is like 3 fingers and your thumb together. A large pinch is like the whole hand in a grip. You know, a pinch of salt is probably like a teaspoon of salt, or more even. It's, you know, how much you can grab. And a pinch is normally done with like a flaked salt, like a Maldon salt, so that you can pick a lot up. So just bear in mind, like, people really don't get how hard you actually season when you do that. You know, I think it's a mistake people make. So what I'm going to do now is let this chill out all day, basically. I'm going to let it cool down. If it gets cool enough to go in the fridge, it can go in the fridge for a bit. And then I'm going to come back and just show people how you do dumplings as kind of a finale to this foray into a cooking show. What I would say about stew is, I think stew is one of the foods that is so much better several hours later. Like, you know, I could take a scoop of this and eat it right now. It'll be nice. But this will be twice as nice about 6 hours from now, roughly, I would say, would be when I'm going to be eating this. You know, even better in the morning, if I'm being honest. So just sort of bear that in mind. You know, stew is a great thing in that you can make a big load of it, put it in the fridge, and just reheat it in a pan. Yeah, so next jump cut will be to me putting some dumplings together. Okay, we're back and making dumplings. So these are what I would call traditional British dumplings. They are suet. They tend to be self-raising flour using now because, you know, modern convenience. This is basically, I can bring you a recipe in. There you go. They're right on the box. So Atora is our brand of suet that we tend to use. Look how old-fashioned that looks. Beautiful. Basically, it is fat mixed with flour to make like a little grainy pellet thing. I think I was showing some people the other day of this on a video, but basically just all mixes up. So it's the flour and suet ratios in there, which is 100 grams to 30 grams. I've then got some salt, some ground pepper, and this is like a dried herb mix from a shaker bottle. which makes like a really nice finish. So literally you just agitate this together into a whatever it is, throw some water in. There will have to be a cut edit because I can't do this one-handed, but you basically add water until you can make a dough, and that's what you're looking for. So as you can see, it's come together into dough, and we then basically put it into the stew. So I've just started heating this up. It's about at temperature now. All we're doing is we're going to cut the heat down to the lowest it can go because we don't want to like burn the bottom of this. This is the exact stew I made earlier with maybe, I don't know, I'm going to call it a splash of extra water in because the water's going to boil out as I boil the dumplings. I'm just going to take this and I'm going to just dollop it in. So actually, see if I can do it one-handed. Kind of. So I mean, they literally just go in like a blob. I should get about 4 out of this. Let's see if the camera works because you know I am literally holding the camera in the air. Going better than I actually thought it would in terms of terrible camera work. Apologies to everyone. You get my nice voice while I'm doing it. Got a beautiful voice, maybe. Yeah, I've not been directly told by several people that my voice is dreadful and makes them feel physically ill. They're not nice people. I'm going to ignore them. Whoops. A bit of rattling and we have a pan lid on. So literally we just leave that for like 5 to 10 minutes and I'll be back to show you, a finished bowl of this stuff. Okay, and we have the finished product. So you'll see the dumplings have like fluffed up. If I break into one, you can see they're like a fluffy, cakey kind of thing. Really good with gravy. I made for, honestly, I normally half this and just have 2. I'm going to have 3, and the dog can have the last one when it's cooled off. But I just did it by the recipe so that I could show people that rather than messing around. But it's all really nice food. Nom nom nom. It's very hot. Yeah. So, hope you've enjoyed the journey into making stew. I don't often do cooking stuff, but, from time to time I like to put it in. I do really, really like cooking. So yeah. I'm going to go eat this. I will see you in the next video.